What is going on, guys? Jonah here. Welcome back to another episode of Lifecast. This is going to be a little bit of a different episode because I have no co-host, and I wanted to still get a episode out today. I know I'm only going to be a little late. I apologize for that. Most people won't notice that with 84 subscribers, but I still wanted to get something out today. So I'm recording a podcast by myself, so I'm going to have to ramble on for 20 minutes, and we'll see how this goes. So fair warning, just tell me in the comments what you think. I know co-host is preferred, but just tell me how I did, because I'm also trying to stretch myself and push myself to try new things, so this was a good opportunity to do that. But as you saw from the title today, I'm going to be talking about No Time to Die. I saw this yesterday. I'm at a 9:30 showing. It's 2.5 hour movie, so didn't get to bed till like 1 o'clock last night because of that. But yeah, so I'll be talking about that. But first, let's get into some nerdy news. So for nerdy news this week, I selected Minecraft Live. So Minecraft Live is streaming live October 16th. This weekend, actually. So in 3 days. I will not be able to watch it live, unfortunately, but I will be watching the recording afterwards for sure. And I wanted to hone in on the 3 mob votes that they had, or the 3 mobs that are going to be voted on during Minecraft Live. So if you're not a Minecraft player, I apologize. It's kind of not your thing, but I think it's interesting to talk about the mechanics that these mobs are going to bring in. So the first video they set out, they had really cute. Minecraft has these really cute animation style things that they do. So even if you're into animation, just go check out the cute little things they do for announcements and stuff for these announcements, because they're really cool. So the first mob that we can vote on is called the Glare. This is a leafy looking type mob. And the whole purpose of the Glare is it can show you where hostile mobs can spawn. So with this new update, hostile mobs can only spawn at 0 light level. And so supposedly if you have one of these things, this Glare, you could put it in the overworld. Like in my world, I have a village fenced in with a bunch of torches. I could put the Glare out there in my world. It seems to be a passive mob, so I could let it out with the villagers, and at night it'll tell me if there's any spots within those fences that is too dark and that stuff can spawn on. So I thought that was interesting. That one gets high points for me because the only way you can really tell if something is too dark for mobs to spawn at this point is to open the F3 screen. And I think Mojang as a company really wants to get people away from depending on that. So I think it'll be interesting to have the Glare in the game. That's actually, I think, my favorite one as of now. But coming in a really close second for me is these are all 3 really good mobs, and each have really good benefits. And for once, I'm actually kind of torn, but Glare is definitely ahead of the game simply because of its use. But we have the Allay, Allay. So this mob loves music and dancing, and its use or functionality is that if you give it an item, it will search for that item and bring some of that item back to you. I'm sure there will be limits to that, because if you give it a nether star, I'm sure it will not come back with 5 nether stars. But supposedly the example they did in the short video introducing it was cookies. So if he gave him 1 cookie, and then that Allay came back with 5 cookies, so it multiplied his cookies just because he gave him a cookie. So that's an interesting second for me, but also we already have that feature kind of with cats, so it's a cool feature and a cool thought, but usage wise, I'm not sure how different that is from a cat. I know it's different, but it's very similar to the cat's feature. So the copper golem is the last one, and I just really like this concept because we have another golem golem. Wow, to have another golem in the game, I think would be really, really cool. So this is player crafted. using copper, obviously, as you can tell from the name. And it will oxidize over time and eventually will freeze in place, which is really, really cool. I'm just going to put that out there. That's a really neat thought on the Mojang team there. I'll give them credit for that. But apparently it's a very very energetic mob when it is alive, and as it slowly rusts, it'll slowly become slower, probably, because it's rustier. But it really likes to press copper buttons. And I know copper buttons do not exist yet, so I'm wondering what the redstone usage of those would be, different from like stone or wooden buttons. So I just thought Copper Golem gets points for me, because it's hinting at adding copper buttons, which is something isn't in the game right now anyway. But as of now, and I don't know what the point of having them press those buttons would be. Maybe it's a way to automate farms. I don't know. I'm sure the redstone community could come up with something really good to use with copper golems. But as of now, I am loving the glare. The glare, the look of it looks a lot like whatever new leaf, those new leaf blocks you can stand on. I'm forgetting what those are called. I should have looked that up before the podcast. But it looks like a lot like those plants from the new 118 update. And the glare looks like it should just be in the caves as like a mob, instead of just having all hostile mobs. Which now, because of the cave update, we have axolotls and glow squid in caves now. But I think introducing the glare into caves would look amazing. They're kind of cute, despite looking very ugly. They're also kind of cute. So, as for rating for me, I'm gonna go with glare would be my top choice. Copper Golem, simply because I want another golem in the game at some point, and I think Copper Golem would be a good second, and Alley is my last pick. Simply because I think cats do a lot. It's a very similar feature to cats, and yeah. So that's my ranking of those features. So tell me what you think in the comments. If you're a Minecraft person, you've been keeping up on this, tell me what you think in the comments. I'd love to hear your thoughts. But now let's move on into the main discussion. Spoilers ahead. I will be spoiling this movie, No Time to Die, the latest installment in the James Bond series, and I'm also going to put a warning out there to all the James Bond fans. I have not seen fully all the new movies. I've seen quite a few of the old movies, but a lot of the new movies with now I'm blanking. With the new James Bond, whatever the actor's name is, I'm pulling up IMDb right now because I'm just forgetting. Daniel Craig, yes, thank you. I knew it was Daniel. I was going to say Daniel Radcliffe. I don't know. That's not it. It's Daniel Craig. So this is my first actually full James Bond movie with Daniel Craig as the James Bond. But I am familiar with James Bond franchise. It's just I haven't seen a lot of the newer movies. I've seen a lot of the older ones. So anyway, so I'm gonna spoilers ahead. So if you do not want spoilers for this movie, stop listening now. So kind of a plot summary. The scene opens with a little girl and her mother in a house. It's snowy, it's wet, and you see in a wide shot that someone is approaching the house, but you don't know if it's a good or bad person at that point. And eventually you hear a knock on the window, and the little girl turns around, and there's a man just standing there with a face mask on. It's really creepy. But what I really liked about this opening scene was there was a point where the camera was on the back of the little girl's head, so you could not see behind her, and she would look over and see, you would tell she saw nothing, and then she'd look back, but then you heard noises outside, so you wanted to see what was going on behind her, but you couldn't because the camera was focused on her back. So that was a really good job, a really good choice, I think, by the director And the director for this movie is Kerry Joji Fukanga. I've never heard of him. I maybe should. He's done a lot of prominent things like It. I'm sorry, I butchered his name there. He is not new to directing. He definitely knows what he's doing. So you will later learn that Madeline, that little girl, was Madeline. And so the scene after that cuts to... so eventually, this little girl, who later learn is Madeline, shoots the man because she shot her mother. Shoots the man, tries to drag him outside, then he wakes up, she realizes he wasn't dead, so she starts running away. She runs on the pond, and the pond cracks underneath her, and she's stuck under the ice. And then this creepy man who was stalking their house, which you later learn is Stephane, sorry, I don't know why I said Stephane, he saves her life, and then there's a cut to James and Madeline on vacation, and obviously they have sexy times because it's a James Bond movie. But James Bond really does seem to love her as a person. So James goes to a graveyard, and I think it's a graveyard of one of his previous lovers. This is just what I've heard from other people. Because I haven't seen the newer franchise, I just asked people afterwards, was that one of his previous lovers? And I was able to pick up on that without actually having seen the past movies. So again, good job to the writers and directors of portraying that to me somehow. Even though I had not seen prior films, this was still a good standalone film. James goes to the graveyard, and just to get closure so he could feel like he could move on with Madeline and start a family with her and stuff, because he genuinely seemed to want that. But the grave is blown up for some reason, and then obviously there's people are chasing after him, and so he goes to the hotel and he thinks that she betrayed him, but she claims she didn't, but he sends her away anyway. And so then after he sends her away, there's a cutscene of text that says 5 years later, and James Bond is just chilling in the grove. It's crazy. They just show him. He has all his high-tech stuff, but it's like he's on this island. He's right by the ocean. He catches his own food to eat. He still has all this high-tech and really cool stuff. But he seems to be just in the middle of nowhere. But the opening credits, the whole bit with James Bond movie is when they show the name of the film, who's the director, who's the writers at the beginning movie credits. When they show all that, they always have cool animation stuff going on, and this one was no exception. It was pretty cool. But someone I was talking to afterwards said it lacked focus, which I kind of understand. Because in past James Bond movies there was a focus to those end credit sequences, but didn't seem to be a focus this time. To me it seemed like it was trying to retell the story it had just told before the sequence, that quick 10-minute sequence beforehand. So I always think those are cool, but I heard from someone that it lacked focus, which I get. So after that, you learn that a facility was broken into that had... it was an off-the-charts facility that the government didn't have on record because they didn't want the chemical stolen, because it was a highly... it was a very dangerous weapon. And basically this weapon is you add DNA to the air substance, and it would only kill that specific person. So it was really, it's the whole idea behind it was that it was less lethal to everybody else, and that it would only kill the people that it was out that it needed to kill. So you could gas a whole room, and it would only affect the person with whose DNA it was trying. So if I was in a room with 20 other people and they were trying to kill me, they just needed a part of my DNA. They put that part of the DNA into the air, and it would only kill me. It wouldn't kill anyone else around. So it was a good idea in theory, but also very dangerous. As you can tell, because the facility is broken into, the stuff is stolen, and it gets into the wrong hands, and now that secret substance is in the hands of the enemy. So first it is used in Cuba to kill all of Spectre, which was last movie. Even the one that was sitting in jail, he was killed by Bond, because Bond had those nanobots on his skin, and when he touched the prisoner, it killed him instantly. So this, the chemical itself is a bunch of nanobots, which is scary to think, and there's no way to get it off of you, unfortunately. So now Bond just has this Spectre repellent, basically, on him at all times, which would have been nice probably a couple movies ago. But the reason that Cuba was attacked to kill off Spectre was actually, I think it was a plot to kill Bond. But the scientist that was there actually switched the DNA from Bond's DNA to Spectre's DNA, because he wanted to kill Spectre. He pretended to drop the data or whatever, and then he pulled one out of his sock, switched it, and it killed all the Spectre when it was released into the air. And then the next big plot point, I'll kind of skip, because if you're listening to me at this point ramble, you've probably seen the movie. So I think the next poignant part was when Safin kidnapped Madeline and her daughter, and took them to an island. So James Bond and the new 007, which is a female, they invaded the island. They were going to blow up the production of the new chemical because it was dangerous, and Safin's plan was to release it onto the whole world, basically. Him and Bond had this whole, like, I'm going to say heart-to-heart. It wasn't really heart-to-heart, but they had a heart-to-heart there somewhere at the end of the movie. So Safin separates Madeline and her daughter, and Madeline is put into a separate part of the facility, and the daughter stays with Safin. And you later learn that this daughter is actually Bond's, which is, I think, awesome. So I actually think that the new 007 should be his daughter. That would be kind of cool, but that's not the direction they're going, and I'll talk about that later. But so Bond, realizing this, goes back. He finds the daughter, tries to get her back, and eventually everybody meets up in this facility. And so Bond sends the new 007, Madeline and her daughter, away to a separate island because they launched missiles because they want to blow up this facility because it's dangerous. So they go away. Bond goes back. He has to open some doors so that the missiles can get in the island itself, and blow up everything that is under the island, not just over the island. And Bond he gets that done. He goes out to leave, but then the hatches or whatever that he had originally opened up shut again because someone shut them. So he was running back up there to go fix that when Safin stopped by, gave him a beating. But eventually Safin was overtaken by Bond, and Bond killed him, but not before Safin was able to release the newly made chemical onto Bond, so he wouldn't be able to touch anybody without killing them. So he had this... So he basically had all the nanobots that was gonna... He had all the nanobots that was gonna take... That was gonna put Safin's plan into motion. So he was kind of doomed at that point. Anyway, Bond was. So he goes there, he opens the hatch back up, and he calls to Madeline. He's like, yo, I'm not going to make it out. The nanobots have been released on me. And even if I could make it out, we wouldn't be able to, really be married because I would have to be quarantined for the rest of my life. And so Bond, already injured and, bleeding and basically dying anyway, basically sacrifices himself and lets the missiles blow him up in the end. So Bond actually dies at the end of this movie, which is something I did not expect to happen. So let's move into my thoughts on the movie. Was this a good movie? Absolutely. They didn't play it safe. They were not scared to kill off characters, and which is, you got to be careful when you kill off characters because you have to do it right. But all the deaths that were in this movie seem to be well thought out, and not because the script said so. They died because it was necessary for the plot to move forward, and it helped motivate Bond. So when Felix died, which I haven't seen the past movies, but I'm assuming was someone that was really close to Bond, that motivated him forward to pursue whatever was going on. So yeah, Felix died. Bond eventually died in the end. And obviously the bad guy died. So I rate this movie a 9 out of 10, simply because they didn't play it safe. They didn't care that they were killing off they cared that they were killing off James Bond, but they weren't scared that the backlash from that was going to be too great, that they revived him in some dumb and random way. So Bond's death had weight, Felix's death had weight, and that was very good. The fight scenes are always great, and the moves that not only James Bond does, but there's a character, Paloma, that he meets in Cuba, that he does the Cuba mission with. That was really cool. Their chemistry was excellent, and I don't mean love chemistry, I mean working together chemistry. And she'd only, the joke with her was that she had only been training for 3 weeks. So there was good humor in there too. It wasn't overdone, but it was just there, just good enough that it made you laugh, but then you were right back to the serious stuff. Right at the beginning with James Bond, he does some really cool stuff with bikes. He does some really cool stuff with his car. James Bond is just makes everything look easy, and he's just a badass, right? So that was awesome. So, and another thing I wanted to point out that this movie did really well was the sound. So there was a point where James Bond got blown up right at the beginning of the movie, right when he was standing by the grave. The bomb went off, and there was music going on at that point, but the music itself started to sound hollow and dull, just as if just the surroundings of Bond also sounded dull, but the music that wasn't even within the world, the music that was outside the world, I forget the name of that, but all the sound just sounded as if you yourself had just gotten blown up and your hearing just kind of lost it a little bit. So it was really, really cool how they did sound with that. So violence, there is a lot of violence within this movie, and the part that made me go really cringe really bad was the part where Bond broke Safin's arm at the end fight there. It was just Oh, still makes me, yeah, it just gives me chills. But yeah, so there is violence, but you got to be able to withstand that, and for the most part, I can. So let's move on into, that's kind of my thoughts. It was a really good movie. Absolutely, you should go see it. But what's James Bond? Where's James Bond going now? We've had many renditions of James Bond over the years. Starting with the old ones where he would have a new girl every movie. It seemed he was getting laid by a different girl or several girls within a movie, to where he became a family man in the newer kind of Bond movies. But now it looks like they're going to have a female as the new 007, which again isn't bad, and I'm not going to be quick to judge it because I understand why they are trying to do this, and it's to empower females, right? And it's to kind of say like girls can do the exact same thing as boys. But I think you also, if you're going to completely change genders, you have to be careful of your demographic that you already have. So the people that love James Bond movies are males. Okay, let's just say it. Majority of people, that doesn't mean girls can't enjoy a Bond movie, but men is the target demographic of James Bond. And the whole spiel of James Bond is that he is a guy, right? It's a boy's fantasy to be like James Bond. I'm not gonna say every boy's fantasy, but like he's handsome, he's a badass, he's fit, he gets girls, he's like all these things. So your main target demographic is men, and when you completely change genders, you're completely changing your demographic of viewers, which I understand. We've had James Bond around for a while now. Since when did the first one come out? 1962, according to my research. 1962 when Dr. No came out. So over 50 years we've had James Bond as he is as a male. And I guess my question that I don't know the answer to is it time to try and switch demographics with James Bond and to try to appeal to a new type of audience? Because if you do completely switch genders and call James Bond and make James Bond a female, you're going to lose a huge portion of your viewership. You saw that with Ghostbusters. The Ghostbusters, the female version that came out, people fell off because it was just a feminine woke yell box, right? And the same, I think, was with the new remake of Mulan. It's Mulan. Yeah, it's Mulan. So again, you have to tread that carefully, because just because it's politically correct doesn't mean it's what's best for the series. But I'm gonna be slow to judge this, because I think they can make Bond a girl and do it right. They just have to be able to stick the landing with it. But they do have to realize that you are gonna lose a huge portion of the fan base, or not lose them, but they're gonna become disinterested. I think you will get some that'll be like, okay, I'm on board with this, but there will be some who are just like, yeah, it's not for me anymore. So that would be, it's gonna be interesting to see where the 007 movies go from here on out, especially because James Bond has now died and is dead. If they were going to reboot the series, they would have to get a new 007 and a new actor, and it looks like at this point that they're trying to do that in a female way, which maybe it's going to be a good move, maybe it's not. We're going to have to see. But that is where I'm going to leave this episode of Lifecast, guys. Thank you for listening to me ramble on about No Time to Die. I wanted to make sure I got an episode out today, and I saw this as an opportunity to try and try something different, while still staying true to what I like to do, which is podcasting. So thank you guys for listening. Check out the description below for any links that you might need. Discord's down there, Reddit, all the things. So make sure you check that down below. Next time for the next Lifecast, I will have a guest, hopefully. I don't want to do a solo podcast every time. It is a lot of hard work. You have to do a lot more planning for a solo podcast than you do for a multiple podcast or multiple host podcast. So there's planning that goes involved with both, but there's a lot more planning with a solo podcast because you're the only one talking. You don't have anything. You can't bank off of anybody else. So thank you guys for listening to this episode. Again, when life gives you lemons, watch a James Bond movie.